When would Krishna Kirtan like to share some remembrances, realizations? What time is it? We can go a little later if there's Well, I'm following the schedule. The schedule was put up. Yeah, we'll find out now. Now we're having a little talks about devotees who, disciples of Prabhupada who have remembrances. Agnideva will be back in a minute. I think Kishore is probably coming later, I don't know. Krishna Kirtan to speak. Anyone else? I suppose. There is here, PRABHUPADA, PRABHU, whoever it may be. I think Goswami is not here. I not going to speak much about memories in terms of pastimes. Om Madhyanatimrandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurandhitambe Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namaha Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Samyavadi Astyachari Shatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gauravata Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. You want to speak some memories, Radhika? Previous lifetime?
I have another microphone.
Jai Prabhupada. So, memories of Prabhupada. Well, there's another way of looking at memories of Prabhupada. What impression is there in the heart? Certainly, events and instructions received therein are most significant memories of Prabhupada. To keep him in our hearts, to remember his presence always. And as Prabhupada himself personally demonstrated and emphasized in his preaching. Enough of that. That's a good move. This Krishna consciousness movement is not just worship of the spiritual master, is not just flowers and incense. It is worship of the order of the spiritual master. And at least from our perspective, this was Srila Prabhupada's living example. As we just heard, you were helping me to fulfill the order of my spiritual master. And more or less we grew up with this understanding. We're here to assist, to serve Srila Prabhupada's mission. Basically, whatever it takes. Whatever preaching Prabhupada said needs to follow my instruction. It's not some learning and espousing what we learn. can be done. But the real preaching is when we apply or follow instruction of the spiritual master. And that's basically what we understood and still do, I hope, as the essence or the foundation of any Krishna consciousness in the world, is to execute the direction of the pure devotee of the Lord. I'm going to read one or two little sections from Shastra, from letters, etc., just to illustrate this point. Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, on the Srimad Bhagavatam, on the title page of the Srimad Bhagavatam, original, Srila Prabhupada has written. Maybe I take it off. This is just like some kind of, what do you call it? I don't know. Take it off the thing. I'll just hold it. Might be easier. Quite restless. A restless microphone, like the mind. It doesn't stay still for a moment. Doesn't even require Radhika coming and knocking it. It does it on its own. So Prabhupada wrote there, and we heard that, a little bit of that just now. He writes that this Bhagavatam is dedicated to my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. Now Prabhupada is writing this about his spiritual master. He lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. Same applies to Srila Prabhupada. Anyone who's following Srila Prabhupada is living with Prabhupada. It's easy to resort to a physical kind of definition. But we may be physically in the presence of Prabhupada, but not really with Prabhupada at all. Just like when we chant japa, we may be chanting, but we're not really there. We're somewhere else. So it's when we dedicate ourselves to applying His instructions in our lives that we live with Him. Prabhupada said, I may come or go, but in my books, I will live forever. If you want to know me, read my books. The more you distribute books, history will change. Whatever I wanted to say, I have said in my books. Prabhupada also said he put all his ecstasy into his books. It's like we're hearing how the waterfalls and the rivers and so on are just liquid ecstasy, prema flowing out of the heart of Giriraj. So similarly, these books are Prabhupada's ecstasy flowing into the world, his love for Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, purport to the 4th canto, chapter 28:47, Srila Prabhupada writes, the disciple and spiritual master are never separated, because the spiritual master always keeps company with the disciple. Some water, Agnideva? Please bring some water. Pardon? You okay? Because the spiritual master always keeps company with the disciple, as long as the disciple follows strictly the instructions of the spiritual master. This is called the association of vani, or words. Physical presence is called PRABHU. As long as the spiritual master is physically present, the disciple should serve the physical body of the spiritual master. And when the spiritual master is no longer physically existing, the disciple should serve the instructions of the spiritual master. And in a lecture in Vrindavan in 1977, or conversation actually, Prabhupada said, "You are my body, so you live on. There is no difference. Just like I am working, so my Guru Maharaj is there, Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami. Physically he may not be, but in every action he is there. I think I have actually written that to Tamal Krishna. Yes, it's in the Bhagavatam. He who lives with him, he lives eternally. He who remembers his words lives eternally." Prabhupada, so I'm not going to die. We just heard deathlessness. Kirtir yasya sajivati. One who has done something substantial, he lives forever. And we can see that now. How millions of people, because of Srila Prabhupada, are coming to Krishna consciousness. Especially those who don't know the history. They often come to the temple and say, "I want to meet Srila Prabhupada. I want to see the author of these books." Prabhupada is still preaching like nobody in the universe. He doesn't die. Even in our practical life, we see the great personalities there. Legacy lives on for a long time. Maybe for thousands. Jesus Christ, thousands of years. Because Krishna is Supreme Lord. But even great devotees of the Lord. And Prabhupada also. Thousands of years ahead, this movement will be spread far greater than it is now. And Prabhupada's glories will be sung everywhere throughout the world universe. Of course, this is material, karma form. One has to accept another body according to his karma. But for devotee, there is no such thing. He always accepts a body for serving Krishna. So there is no karma form. Karma means, Prabhupada describes, that which causes the development of future material bodies. Material body means engage in karma. That's what karma means. Srila Prabhupada continued to talk, but with occasional reflections on his present condition. What is the problem, he asked. We are talking about Krishna. So if all of a sudden I collapse, then what is the problem? Krishna Tadiya Padapankaja Pancharantam. Prabhupada was chanting this quite a lot in his last days, his prayer King Kulashekhar, which refers to, may I leave this body now while I'm still some kind of health. Otherwise, at the time of death, the throat becomes choked up and you can't control anything. Let me go now. Ordinary dying is kaphavata pitta, choking. But if in the kirtan you die, oh, it is so successful. Not the injection and operation. No, not that atmosphere. But in Krishna kirtan, that is glorious. Not oxygen, gas, dying, so much trouble. We didn't want that at all. No tubes, no needles. Just wanted to leave his body. In fact, at the end, last few weeks, the different Ayurvedic doctors were coming, prescribing this thing and that thing. And Prabhupada accepted their sincere intentions. But he eventually just said, Amala Harina Mamiyadana. So the only medicine is the medicine of the holy name. Inichio Sharimaya Nashibhava. There is no other Ushari. There is only the holy name. Nothing else. That's the real medicine. Chant Hare Krishna. Bas. And it's no more finished. And let me die. Never be disturbed. Chant Hare Krishna. For chanting you've got so much material. Now, read something from this book. Last conversations in Prabhupada's room in 1977. Tamal Krishna Prabhupada, Hare Krishna Kirtan. Tamal Krishna Kirtan. Do you want some kirtan? Prabhupada, soft kirtan. Lord Krishna, okay. Prabhupada, Thakore, I want association of the Vaishnava. You are all pure Vaishnavas. You have sacrificed everything, material comforts for Krishna's sake. That is Vaishnava. Anyabilashitar Shunyam. You have no other desire. You Europeans, Americans, you were born amongst material desires, and when you become free from material desires, therefore you are all Vaishnavas. So you are so merciful. A letter to Shamsundar. You're expecting to see me, but I also expected to see the London Rath Yatra. But you made no arrangements, so what can I do? So let us meet by Sankirtan. I also do not feel separation from my Guru Maharaj. When I am engaged in his service, his pictures give me sufficient strength. To serve the spiritual master's word is more important than to serve him physically. And to my students, never think that I am absent from you. Physical presence is not essential. Presence by message or hearing is real touch. Lord Krishna is present by his message, which was delivered 5,000 years ago. We feel always the presence of our past acharyas simply by their immutable instructions. My dear beloved children, please accept my blessings. I'm so much pleased with your kind and affectionate words on the occasion of my birthday anniversary on the Nandotsava day, this year 72. My Guru Maharaj wanted me to spread this Krishna conscious movement in the Western world, and you are all helping in this great attempt. My spiritual master knew it that alone I could not do this great work. Therefore, he has very kindly sent you all to help me in this task. I accept you, therefore, as representatives of my Guru Maharaj, playing as my affectionate disciples. It is said that child is father of man. Kindly, therefore, continue your help in this great task and act as my young father and mother in my old age. I am your ever well-wisher. The spiritual master, back to Dawn. The spiritual master is present wherever his sincere disciple is trying to serve his instructions. This is possible by the mercy of Krishna. In your attempts to serve me, and in all your sincere devotional sentiments, I am with you, as my Guru Maharaj is with me. Remember this always. And to Vibhavati and Ishan, our ISKCON should be taken as being a family based upon love and trust. So as the father becomes unhappy when one of his children wishes to break family connections, I also become unhappy when there is difficulty within our ISKCON family. So please do not consider leaving, as you are spiritual children of mine. Please chant your rounds sincerely and read carefully all the books and dedicate your life equally to Krishna and your spiritual master. This will make you happy. We're way back in 70. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adlila. The service of the spiritual master is essential. If there's no chance to serve the spiritual master directly, a devotee should serve him by remembering his instructions. There is no difference between the spiritual master's instructions and the spiritual master himself. In his absence, therefore, his words of direction should be the pride of the disciple. The disciple should not consider whether he is going back home, back to Godhead. His first business should be to execute the order of his spiritual master. Thus the disciple should always meditate on the order of the spiritual master, and that is perfectional meditation. The order of the spiritual master is perfectional meditation. We may make some imposition and try to remember Krishna, Balarama, Govinda, Madhava, fine. But Prabhupada is saying here perfection or meditation on the order of the spiritual master. Not even on the pastimes here, he says the order. Not only should he meditate upon that order, but he should find out the means by which he can perfectly worship and execute it. It's not just enough just an armchair meditation, philosophizing. One of Prabhupada's nephews, god-nephews, when he spoke one time in Vrindavan on this occasion, on Prabhupada's Tirubhav, maybe 25 years ago, I still remember, disciple of Puri Maharaj. And he spoke English a little bit, he spoke briefly. And he said, Swami Maharaj, amongst all the followers of Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, understood his heart, whilst others were sitting around philosophizing. Swami Maharaj took the order of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Srila Prabhupada to heart and went, preached all over the world and attacked science and sense gratification. Who would dare try to attack such formidable forces? The whole world is being manipulated in this way. And Prabhupada full on attacked the very substance, you could say, of this present stage of Kali Yuga, fearlessly taking shelter of his Gurudev. So how to execute that order of the spiritual master. So I'll just finish there on one thing, and that is that these orders, well, we all have, as we heard in that song just now, how many wonderful ways of spreading Krishna consciousness. There's waves or jewels in that river of pure bhakti which Prabhupada is emanating through Srila Prabhupada throughout the world. And so many different ways of disseminating Lord Chaitanya's message. Memory? Well, I just remember how much Srila Prabhupada, when he was in London in 77, and two things stick out there. One, how much Srila Prabhupada was concerned about the cows, which he talked about a lot, and Varnashram as a consequence, specifically cows. And the other was the book distribution. He wasn't even, so many new devotees, he was more concerned with how many books were distributed. He saw this as planting seeds in countless ways. These books were living, literary forms of Godhead, giving their darshan to people. They preach. Krishna preaches through the pure devotee in a literary form in this way. Prabhupada said one time, what will your 2 minutes talk to? If they take a book, this is concrete preaching, solid preaching. When Prabhupada was there in 77, many devotees came from other parts of Europe. This is Prabhupada's last visit outside of India to London, anywhere in the world in fact, other than India. A few months before he left the world, he came at the end of August. And we were on a non-stop book marathon that year, well, since about April, when Prabhupada first strong symptoms of his illness came. And we just instigated a non-stop marathon. France has also the same thing, non-stop marathon practically. It was when we say marathon, we get a little bit nervous or a little bit, oh no. But it's not like that. Prabhupada said it's samadhi. The devotees were so absorbed in this is the way to please Prabhupada. This is the way to keep him with us always. Distribute the message which he's given to us prolifically. So we had pretty much from March onwards 80 full-time book distributors in the UK, men and women, traveling around the whole country and other countries too, distributing books like anything. I saw one of the books we distributed yesterday in the library, the 1977 print of the abridged Bhagavad Gita. We printed 250,000 of those to distribute the next year or two in the UK. And it was such a competition going on, healthy competition, pleasing competition. LA, and rather than were subsided by then. LA, France and the UK were the three contenders. Main ones, Germany was also going strong, but they didn't have, at that time, they didn't have the resource. A tremendous competition going on to distribute more and more and more books and bring more and more pleasure to Prabhupada. When he came to London, his physical form was very frail. He didn't give any lectures. He gave a little darshan. He would come down for daily greeting. He couldn't take the Guru Puja. He said it was too overwhelmingly emotional. He couldn't bear it. He would go back up again after darshan. He only came down one time for a protracted period of time in the temple room, and that was on his last Vyasa Puja day, the day after Janananda. He came down and sat for several hours on the Vyasa with the devotees gathered around. Tamal Krishnaraj gave an astonishing speech about Srila Prabhupada, his glories, his life, his teachings, etc. Everyone was spellbound. And Prabhupada sat there occasionally interjecting with additions or corrections, comments. And then he received his final cake, birthday cake. 81 candles were on the cake. It was 81 years. And Prabhupada was quite close. And he actually asked the lady, I don't know who it was, one lady, or several ladies brought the cake in, but one of them, he asked, how many candles? And they said 81. And Prabhupada said 82. Put another one on the cake. They had to put another cake because in Vedic society, when you're born, that is your first birthday. It's quite common sense. Anyone's got a peanut brain can understand that when you're born, that's your first birthday. So this is your 82nd birthday, at least in terms of separation. So one more candle had to come. But that was Prabhupada's. And then the devotees we were on a marathon. And we didn't stop the marathon. We increased it when Prabhupada was there. More devotees out, longer hours. Nowadays is when someone comes, no, stop. When Prabhupada came, we would increase the Sankirtan. If we do that, life only existed to please him, had no other purpose. So we knew that this was one easy, short, certain way to please Prabhupada by trying to distribute his books. There are many other ways too. This was a certain way, and mostly the devotees were doing this. So one devotee was thinking, because every day the Tamal Krishnas was reading scores to Prabhupada, book distribution scores from here and there. I said, this is too much for Srila Prabhupada. He's sick, putting too much strain on him. So when this came to Prabhupada, Prabhupada did not agree with that statement. He said, this is what's giving me life. When I hear how many of my books are being distributed so large quantities, this gives me life. And that's their business. Their business, of course, Prabhupada is eternally reasons ill to tell the Vaishnavas die while thou art living still in sound and so on. Vaishnavas never die. They live eternally. In this world, they spread the holy life around it. But from one perspective, this is life. Life means bringing pleasure and Nandamaya to Srila Prabhupada. Instead of thinking of me, we never. This type of thought was always like, what are you doing here? I want this, I want that. What about me? It wasn't a question. It was just, how can we do more to please Prabhupada? How can I sacrifice more? How can I surrender more? And of course, we're on different levels of devotion, we have different experiences, but this was the mood. And this is the mood of samadhi, this is the mood of meditating. The real association with the Guru is not to make the Guru my servant. Please give me this, please give me that. It's not our business. Let go. Just please engage me. Prabhupada said the only prayer should be, my dear Lord, how can I engage? Please, how can I please you? Prabhupada said to his spiritual master. How can I please you? Please engage me. This is the same. Prabhupada said he didn't really want to take sannyasi. But he did for pleasing his Guru Maharaj. He went to the West alone to please his spiritual master. He did everything for that. The more we can focus our lives on that, the more chance there will be this movement will spread like wildfire. Everyone will have a common. After the departure of the spiritual master, we have to put the Acharya in the center of their lives. Prabhupada is the Acharya. As long as this movement lives or maintains, Srila Prabhupada is the Acharya. He's the central Siksha Guru for hundreds of generations to come. Great devotees come and go, but Srila Prabhupada will always be there as that central Siksha pivot of this movement. The more we keep his will in the center, not just sentiments, what we heard here and there, but his actual mood. And we can get that if you read Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma, you can imbibe the actual mission statement of ISKCON. It's the mood, it's not things that we do only. It's the mood in which we live our lives, that mood of complete dependence on our spiritual master, on Krishna. And that's what comes through in Srila Prabhupada's. At least that's, from my perspective, whatever that's worth, is this mood that Srila Prabhupada has of total surrender and total dependence on his Guru Maharaj, upon the process, the instructions of his Guru Maharaj. So we'll finish there. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Go Premanandi. Maybe Krishna Prasthayamanta is here. Is she with us at the moment?
She's right there.
She's there.
Oh, no, sorry, excuse me. Krishna Kirtan.
She was just here.
She said she will speak after.
So maybe, who else we have? Agnideva Prabhu. Any other disciples? Would you like to speak for next Agnideva Prabhu?
I can try.
It wasn't tried. You have nothing else to do with your life other than glorifying Prabhupada.
You can do the offering, right? You're doing the offering.
Yeah, work it out. If PARAMGATI Prabhu has, he may have to go to do the offering. Don't we worry too much about strict timing here. This is a rare occasion.
Let's find the teacher. You have to go on.
Yeah, you were doing the offering?
I'm taking care of Papa's offering. You speak first.
We have two mics. One for each hand. Prabhupada said one gun for each hand.
Well, come over here from the Yeah, Michael.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. So, my dear Srila Prabhupada, I was meditating this morning after leaving our class today about glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam. Like you said, if you read one sloka, if one word is so powerful, Therefore, we came with this mission to give us the right way to go back home, back to Godhead. As well, I was listening this morning your famous lecture given in Los Angeles in 1969 on the disappearance day to Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And then you said, I was trying to follow his will, but one day I go to leave. This is nature, it's a law of nature. You cannot avoid it. But please carry on this mission through my will. Emphasize it. And like now, Janananda Goswami Maharaj was reading about how meditation, the real meditation is meditating the will of the spiritual master, the mission of the spiritual master. Therefore, you came to give us, like Janananda Maharaj mentioned on Prabhupada's nephew, was a nephew. Prabhupada's nephew. You see, one Vaishnava, Prabhupada's nephew.
Yeah.
His nephew.
Prabhupada's disciple.
Nephew.
A nephew.
Disciple of one of Prabhupada's.
Yeah. And then he said Srila Prabhupada understood Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's heart. And then you see in many ways, how you really you accomplish the mission, the prediction in the Vedas, that in this age of Kali, in every town and village, everyone you just chant the holy name of Krishna. You see this prediction is there, more and more and more. So therefore, today in your most auspicious day of your departure, you're physically you left, but you are here with us. You can feel it. Like always you used to stress again and again, real association means Bhakti, association. Therefore, by intensely cultivate of Bhakti association, you feel your presence daily in your life. Therefore, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
The feast will be late, as it is. The program will be over and we'll be waiting 1 hour for the feast. That's what you have.
So you'd like
If we can delay it a little bit, then just carry on. No rush. At least.
Yeah.
Agnidev Prabhu, would you like to?
Yeah, I have a mind.
A short correction. Actually, it's not the real association is very.
Yeah,
I'm sure also.
I figured that's what you meant.
Yeah, even Prabhu would sometimes, say the word, but everyone knew what he meant,
Yeah.
It's like,
Yes.
it's not a mistake.
Yeah.
Not a mistake.
Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardana. He takes the heart, the essence of the devotee. The devotee may, it's Westerners especially, we pronounce things wrong. From the beginning, still we are pronouncing wrong. But Prabhupada, he was accepting it. He was accepting our offering because he understood where our heart was.
Remember?
Sounds like a rock pizza.
About Gouda. Remember?
Is that you?
Yeah.
About Gouda.
Yeah.
I know you're calling Gouda, but I know you're calling cow.
Guru.
Yeah.
Gouda.
Yeah. One day Guru Sri Charanaravinda. In the early days, some devotees, because this was a new language, they would pronounce, and they were singing this in Bangladesh. Gaurav?
Yeah.
Gaurav. So Prabhupada said, yes, you're saying offering respects to the cow. It's not a bad idea, but that's not what the song means.
He also said you're describing me as a cow.
Yeah.
Calling me a cow.
It's not a bad idea. So, but Krishna is like, he takes the essence, the bright side. He looks at the bright side. If you really looked at the faults, then where would we be? We have no qualification. That was, Prabhupada wasn't pointing out our faults, but just being in his presence, you would realize how faulty you are. How, you're full of faults. Kali Yuga is described in Bhagavatam, Kale Doshani De Rajan, Yasti Kamadguna. Sukadeva Goswami told the king, this Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. But there's one good thing about it, that by kirtan, Krishna kirtan, you can become liberated. So, Prabhupada, of course he stressed what rules he expected his followers to adopt, but he was looking to see, he was happy if we are following his, if we are chanting and we're going out and saying kirtan and so on. Then although we may be doing so many other, we weren't, as I said, we weren't born in Brahmin families, we weren't raised in a culture of Krishna Bhakti. So we were always making mistakes. And he was always, patiently correcting us. So he was always hoping that we would become better at it. But my first, you could say, well, the first time I saw Prabhupada was that we went to the airport to greet him in New York. And, I didn't know I didn't know who Srila Prabhupada was or anything. But I was visiting the temple, and the devotee said, come with us, we're going to greet Prabhupada, he's coming in, he's flying into New York, and we're going to greet him. And the whole temple practically went out to greet Prabhupada at the airport. They had garlands, baskets of flower petals, madangas and kartals. And in those days it was Krishna's arrangement that his pure devotee was received and glorified so wonderfully. At that time, traveling in the airports, we could go all the way up to the gate. When he comes in, after he gets off the plane, enters the airport, we could go all the way there. And there was no security. So we would go all the way up to the gate with our instruments and flowers and everything. And as soon as Prabhupada walked through the door, kirtan would begin. We would pretty much take over the airport, dominate. The airport was like literally quiet until Prabhupada walked through the door. And then we forgot about everything, and we just glorified him. And he accepted it, and I looked around and I saw how people were amazed at how we were carrying on. They didn't understand it, but it was a wonderful experience. And it was fitting that the messenger of God should be received nicely. But even though in America, there's so many churches and so much talk of God, but yet they couldn't recognize when a pure servant of God came. They looked upon the devotees as weird. I mean, the movement was under attack in America. They called us a cult. They said we are brainwashed. When they told Prabhupada, this is what they're saying about us, he said, yes, our brains are filthy. It needs washing. He just turned it around. Yes, we are washing their brains. But, and he would say these things to make us understand really what this movement is about. This movement is distributing knowledge by which people can become free from, get out of the cycle of birth and death. This is a great mercy. This is the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, Rupa Goswami could recognize. He said, you are giving out love of God. Only Krishna can do that. So you must be Krishna. And what you're doing has never been done before. Never been given out before. Even when Krishna himself came, some 5,000 years ago, he didn't give out love of God. He didn't give himself so easily. He pretty much said, Sarvadharma Paritaja. At the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, he said, you surrender and I'll protect you. But the same Krishna in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he makes no condition. He's given, take the love of Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. So it's a special, we happen to be coming in the time of a special benediction, coming so close to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Prabhupada brought that. He brought that benediction out of India. Before Prabhupada came, nobody knew anything. The word Krishna, I'd never heard of it, this name. So what to speak of having as an aspiration to develop love of God? That was not, no one taught like that. But Prabhupada, being a lover of God himself, he was able to inspire people to want to try for that high thing, love of God. I mean, we were people coming off the streets, living very horrible lives. But just by a few moments of association with Prabhupada, they wanted to dedicate their lives to developing love of God. And they wanted to assist him in any way possible. But, as I said, the first time I went and saw Prabhupada was in the airport. And he wasn't, just seeing, you can't really know him. You can't understand him. Just to see him, so many people saw him. Even representatives from television stations and radio stations, they came to interview him. They got an opportunity, a golden opportunity, to ask him questions. And those people after meeting him that day at the airport and questioning, we never saw them again. But that was their good fortune, that they got to be so close to Prabhupada. Any service, it doesn't go unnoticed. It's the beginning of their good fortune. So that was the first time I saw Prabhupada. But it's like from a distance. I was just one of the crowd watching him and trying to understand. And I got, you get swept up by the enthusiasm of all his followers. I was slowly inching my way towards becoming a devotee. I liked everything, but I was holding back. And then at the temple, Prabhupada spoke, and by hearing him, then I could understand why everybody's so, enamored by him. Everyone, his followers expressed such love for him that I hadn't seen anywhere else. I hadn't seen so many people expressing love for another one person. And it was the scenario was, Prabhupada was an old Indian man, and all of his followers in the temples were young. Practically there was no one amongst his followers, there was no one over 30. Everyone was, young. And one reporter noticed that, and he asked Prabhupada, how come you don't have any old people? No followers, none of your followers are old. And Prabhupada said, what do you mean by old? And the man thought for a minute, he said, well, old means approaching death. Someone who's getting ready to die. So Prabhupada said, does that mean you are not approaching death? He said, no, everyone is approaching death. But he said, but our youth is a time for learning. That's why people go to the schools and colleges, the university, when they're young, not when they're old. So they're coming because they want to get a spiritual education. So this is the time for them. And it's the time for you too. Prabhupada made things so, it was very simple. If they would just hear what he was saying. So the time, he only came for a few days. At that time I didn't realize how vast the movement was all around the world. So that's why he would only stay 3-4 days, and then he's going to somewhere else. 3-4 days, and somewhere else. So that was once a year, that time was precious, priceless, to get 3-4 days to sit and hear, I never had personal conversations with Prabhupada, but I was quite happy just to be in the room where he's speaking, to hear him. Because everything he said was beneficial for everyone. He looked beyond where we were coming from. He was really a compassionate soul. And after hearing him speak, it was very, as I said, I was slowly inching my way to Krishna consciousness. thinking that I would join, because I knew how the devotees lived. I knew their lifestyle, their austerities, and I thought, I don't think I could live like that. But I liked coming to the temple, I liked taking prasadam, I liked kirtan, but I wasn't ready to commit myself to a life, that lifestyle. But after hearing him speak, it became clear to me that I have to do that. I have to do that. That was like the next step. And so, after his first visit, it still took me a few months to, gather up the courage and detach myself from whatever else was going on in my life and come and dedicate myself. And after joining, I remember thinking, I don't know why I waited so long, because it was so nice. But from the outside looking, you can't know. But just by coming and participating in the program that Prabhupada gave, he said, if you follow this program, you'll become strong. And I saw that by coming and, So it was a journey to come to the point of, and this was something that I couldn't even explain to anybody that I knew. When I tell them what I was going to do, once I made up my mind, then I had to give everybody notice that I'm going to move into the ashram, the temple, and this is what I want to do. I was young. This is what I want to do with my life. Nobody could understand. They were all, even some, they seemed like they were afraid. Just to hear that I was going to do it was frightening to them. But once my mind was made up, I'm going to do it, then there was no turning back from that. So, and from that, once the day I went into the temple, I never looked back. Never looked back. I used to come to the temple with my younger brother and sister, my younger sister. I used to bring them to the temple every Sunday. So they also got to see Prabhupada. They also got to hear. But somehow they never followed me in going into. And I wasn't going to wait around for them. I thought, this is something I have to do. This was in my self-interest. And I knew, going forward, I had the faith that they'll be all right. They'll be protected. They'll be all right. I don't have to worry about them. I just have to worry about me becoming Krishna conscious. It was like a giant step, you could say. Every devotee comes. If you interview all the devotees, everyone has some ordeal to go through before coming. Even though it's the most wonderful thing, but still, because we have no knowledge, we remain attached to the material world, And but when an opportunity, a golden opportunity comes before you, if you don't take it, then it's gone. It's gone. I mean, Prabhupada was here physically, and if we were fortunate, we came and offered ourselves to assist, to serve. But then, in a short time, he's gone. But he gave such hope that even when we were hearing that he's getting ready to leave, his body was breaking down. I don't know any devotee. Everyone was pretty much like in denial. They all thought, oh, he's going to bounce back. He's going to come out of this sickness. He's going to bounce back up. And then when eventually he did leave, we were like plunged in an ocean of grief. But he was teaching us, it's going to happen. He taught us how to live, and then he taught us how to die. And he left his passing was glorious. Therefore, we celebrate the passing. Maharaj said this morning, it seems even more his disappearance is celebrated than his appearance. Because really his appearance in this world, we didn't know him. He was in India. We didn't get to know him until it was in the 70s. But for those 10, 11 years that he was here with us, till he left, that much we know. And saw how he lived, and how he prepared. He was prepared. He wasn't afraid of death. He knew it was inevitable. It's coming. We were young and we thought death was far away, but it's not. This is a plane of death. But by hearing, as we heard this morning, by hearing Harikatha, what is it? Hari Lilamrita Vacha. Hearing about Krishna Katha, hearing the glories of, we become deathless. And who goes on hearing, then for him there's no death. Death is just passing, because the body will end, we have to leave. But if our life is centered around hearing and chanting, then we don't worry. What a gift Prabhupada gave to human society. To live in consciousness of God. And we have to practice. Practice daily. They say practice makes perfect. If we don't practice, then when the end comes, we may not remember. But if we're practicing daily, there's a good chance that we'll be able to think of Krishna. This is just one of the many wonderful gifts that Prabhupada gave. And he taught by example. He didn't just give out a bunch of rules and regulations and say, you do this, and he's doing something else. No, he was doing also. And therefore, we were inspired to follow him. They say example is better than precept. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was like that also. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually, he didn't write many books. We know that he wrote one poem, Shikshastakam. But he taught, and he taught by example with his followers, and they, his followers after him, began to write so many books, down to the present day. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was an acharya, teaching by example. And Prabhupada was a perfect acharya, teaching by example. So, this is a day to think about our good fortune, coming in touch with Krishna consciousness. If Prabhupada hadn't come, where would we be? Where would we be? What would our lives be like? And if you think like that, you'll know it wouldn't be good. No matter what you were doing, it pales in comparison to what you're doing now. So, one devotee said, it's like in the first temple was a storefront called Matchless Gifts. And he said, by Prabhupada moving into Matchless Gifts, he began to give out the real matchless gifts. What he was giving was priceless, matchless. And he gives so many things. But the most priceless thing of all is his books. One last thing about distributing Prabhupada's books. It means when you give somebody a book, you're giving Prabhupada the opportunity to preach to that person. We may not be as expert to present the philosophy, but Prabhupada was expert. So if you give Prabhupada a book, you're giving him another opportunity to preach to someone. Prabhupada once said that Lord Nityananda Prabhu was very eager to preach. He was so eager to preach that he was eager to go, he would go to the most fallen, Jagai and Madai. And Prabhupada, imbibing that mood of Lord Nityananda, he came west, where everybody's fallen, thousands of Jagais and Madais, and he's delivering them. So he was eager to preach. When every Sunday we hear a little bit of Nilamrita from the beginning, he practically had no facility. He didn't have a secretary. He didn't have the first temple had no furniture in it, nothing. But still he was eager to preach, and whoever walked through those doors, he had time for them. He had time for them. And there's testimony from people who were interviewed, who were coming by. And they said they knew that they themselves were in a bad state. But they said, but the Swami was always, he didn't dismiss them. He had time for them. Because he truly wanted to give everybody this priceless gift, Krishna consciousness. And if we feel that we have been benefited by taking the Krishna consciousness, if if you feel that, yes, I've benefited from it, then the only thing to do is I should give it to others. Make other people fortunate. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Thank you, Agnidev Prabhu. Abhishek, I think. Wait.
Vidura? Where's Vidura? Where's